Chosen one. Listen closely. Something in your spirit already knows this moment is not random. Heaven has been whispering through the noise, calling your name, aligning your path, preparing you for a divine date that was written long before time began. December 22 is not an ordinary day. It is an appointed moment, a heavenly intersection where obedience will unlock what delay has held back. You have felt it, an invisible pull, a stirring that refuses to let you rest. You've wondered why certain doors stayed closed, why certain people left, why the timing never seemed to make sense. Yet, through it all, something deeper inside you kept saying, wait, stay ready. That wasn't hesitation, that was divine synchronization. Every setback was a setup for this countdown. Heaven has watched your private obedience, the quiet decisions, the tears that no one saw, the moments when giving up would have been easier. Those were not wasted. They became evidence in heaven's courts that you can be trusted with more. Because obedience is not just about following instructions, it is about proving alignment with divine authority. The Spirit spoke long ago through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 1, verse 19. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. That verse is not a suggestion, it is a spiritual law. Willingness without obedience is intention without manifestation. But when the two unite, heaven opens. Your obedience carries the key to a reward already written in your name. And December 22 is the moment that key turns. You must understand, heaven responds not to emotion, but to obedience. Many cry out for breakthrough, but few step into it because they hesitate at the edge of instruction. Yet you, chosen one, are different. You've been trained in hidden seasons. You've been refined by fire, taught to trust even when no voice came from the cloud. That is why this word has found you now. The countdown has begun. Every act of obedience between now and December 22 is a seed sown directly into your destiny. What you release in faith before that day will determine what heaven releases after it. This is not about performance, it is about partnership. When your will aligns with His, reward follows effortlessly. Look around, the atmosphere is shifting. Heaven's frequency is rising. Angels are being positioned, not to bless random motion, but to empower divine obedience. Every delay has been a waiting room for your yes. Once you give it, what was locked will burst open. The reward is not only provision, it is divine clarity, supernatural peace, and visible favor that testifies you have been marked by God. Don't ignore the whispers in your heart. The instruction may seem small, an apology, a prayer, a step of faith, but that is the act heaven is waiting on. Remember, destiny often hides in simple obedience. The miracle you pray for may already be waiting on the action you've delayed. Chosen one, you are standing at the edge of fulfillment. The heavens are open, watching for your response. On December 22, your obedience will activate what prophecy alone could not. This message did not reach you by accident, it was sent as confirmation. God has paused everything else so you could hear this truth. The next door will not open through striving, but through surrender. If this word resonates in your spirit, type 22 inches, the comments, as your prophetic sign of agreement. Like, share, and subscribe so that others marked for this same season may awaken to their moment of obedience. You are not just a listener, you are a carrier of divine instruction. Obedience will be your offering. faith will be your key. December 22 will be the day heaven answers. Get ready to move, because when you do, the reward moves too. Heaven is leaning close, waiting for your next move. Every heartbeat between now and December 22 carries significance. Do not dismiss the small promptings, the gentle inner voice guiding you toward obedience. Each act of faith you take now is building a bridge to your promised reward. The wind of alignment is already blowing. You may not see it yet, but divine order is unfolding quietly around you. Circumstances that once resisted you are bending to the weight of your calling. Keep walking. Even when visibility fades, obedience sees what eyes cannot. On that appointed day, you will look back and understand why waiting was necessary. Every unanswered question will make sense in the light of fulfillment. Your obedience will not only bless you, it will ripple outward, touching generations connected to your yes. So rise, chosen one, walk with holy confidence. The countdown continues, but fear no longer has authority over you. Heaven's record already bears your name beside the word faithful. Keep your heart steady, your spirit listening, and your obedience unwavering. The reward is already on its way. You have been marked by obedience, not by titles, not by appearance, not by status, but by the unseen pattern of surrender that heaven has traced across your life. Every chosen one bears this mark. It is invisible to the world, yet unmistakable in the spirit. It glows when you choose to obey, even when it costs you comfort. When you say yes, while your flesh says no, the heavens recognize that light and respond to it. There is something sacred about the way obedience transforms you. It strips away the illusion of control and replaces it with divine alignment. You learn that obedience is not about losing freedom, it is about stepping into divine order. Every time you obey, you agree with heaven's architecture for your destiny. You shift from chaos to clarity. You stop chasing answers and start walking in revelation. Chosen one, your journey has already proven your capacity for obedience. The moments you felt overlooked were actually invitations to deeper trust. When you chose integrity over convenience, when you forgave instead of retaliating, when you stayed faithful though unseen, those were not small choices. They were acts of spiritual warfare. Every obedient decision weakened the enemy's hold and strengthened heaven's claim over your life. Scripture reveals through the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 21, "Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me." This verse exposes a truth few understand. Love is proven through obedience. It is not emotion that moves heaven, it is adherence to instruction. To obey is to demonstrate love in motion. The ones who truly walk with God are not those who feel deeply, but those who follow completely. And you, chosen one, have been chosen to live this truth aloud. You may wonder why obedience feels heavy at times. It's because every act of obedience breaks old patterns. It dismantles spiritual structures built from fear, pride, or self-reliance. When you obey, something inside you dies, so something eternal can rise. It's not punishment, it's transformation. Heaven refines those it plans to reveal. Consider the times you didn't understand why God asked you to wait, to release, or to move in a direction that made no sense. You thought it was delay, but it was protection. Heaven often hides answers inside instructions. Only when you step forward in faith does the full picture unfold. That is why obedience feels like walking blindfolded. It requires trust in the unseen, confidence in the voice, and courage to continue without full visibility. Obedience also separates you. It's not rejection, it's refinement. When God sets you apart, He is positioning you for greater assignments. The loneliness that sometimes follows your yes is not punishment, it's preparation. Heaven isolates before it elevates. The silence around you isn't emptiness, it's sacred space being cleared for divine occupancy. You have noticed that when you delay obedience, peace fades. That is because peace is the fragrance of alignment. The moment you step out of instruction, confusion enters. But when you obey, even in uncertainty, a calm assurance rises inside you. That peace is heaven's confirmation. It's the quiet applause of the angels who witness your surrender. The mark of the chosen is not perfection, but willingness. Heaven is not searching for flawless vessels, but for yielded hearts. You may stumble, but your posture of surrender keeps you aligned. The more you obey, the more heaven trusts you with revelation. And the more you walk in revelation, the more your obedience becomes instinct rather than struggle. There is a mystery here. Obedience not only activates reward, it transforms identity. You are no longer a seeker of signs, but a carrier of divine will. Heaven no longer needs to convince you. It simply commands, and you respond. That is what maturity in the Spirit looks like. You stop negotiating with purpose and start flowing with it. Chosen one. This is what separates those who hear about God from those who walk with Him. The obedient become extensions of His hands and voice on earth. When you obey, your life becomes a bridge between the divine and the earthly. There is a reason the enemy attacks your obedience so fiercely. He knows that the moment you obey without hesitation, his influence collapses. Disobedience was his downfall, and your obedience is your victory. Every time you choose surrender over rebellion, heaven celebrates and hell trembles. You may not always feel strong, but obedience is not built on feeling, it is built on faith. Faith says, even when I don't understand, I trust. Faith walks forward when sight fails. Faith remembers that heaven always rewards those who move according to divine instruction. So walk confidently in the knowledge that you are already recognized in the Spirit as one who obeys. Heaven sees you. The unseen realm already acknowledges your name as one marked by surrender, and when December 22 arrives, your obedience will not just unlock a reward, it will reveal who you have truly become. The testing season, it was never meant to destroy you, but to reveal what cannot be shaken. Every hardship, every night you wrestled with doubt, every unanswered prayer, all of it was preparation for a level of obedience deeper than comfort. You thought you were being punished, but heaven was refining you through fire. What looked like loss was actually instruction. What felt like delay was disguised development. You have walked through valleys that others could not survive. Your tears watered the soil of future blessings. Every rejection forced you closer to the voice of God, until obedience became your only stability. You have learned to recognize His whispers in the middle of storms, to see divine fingerprints in moments that once looked like chaos. That awareness is proof that the testing season has done its work. The Spirit reminds us through the writings in the first book of Peter, chapter 1, verse 7, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. Gold cannot be formed without heat, and faith cannot be perfected without testing." Heaven trusted you enough to refine you. While others complained, you endured. While others retreated, you stood still. Even when you broke, you didn't turn away. You allowed the breaking to become shaping. The mark of a chosen one is not how loud they praise in victory, but how quietly they obey in pain. There were seasons when you prayed and heaven answered only with silence. You thought God had abandoned you, but silence was his classroom. The absence of noise taught you to listen differently. You learned that divine instruction often comes disguised as waiting. You discovered that obedience is not just movement, it is patience in motion. Do you remember the moment when nothing seemed to work anymore? When doors that once opened easily suddenly resisted you? That resistance wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Heaven was protecting you from paths that looked promising but would have pulled you away from purpose. Your frustration was divine mercy in disguise. Chosen one. Your testing season was heaven's method of purification. God was teaching you to discern between opportunities and instructions, between emotions and conviction. He was removing every dependency that stood between you and full surrender. You lost people, positions, and comfort, but you gained clarity. Now, your obedience is not based on fear of loss, but on love for his will. When heaven trusts you with silence, it means your maturity has begun. God no longer needs to prove his presence with constant signs because he knows you believe him even when you can't trace him. This is the maturity of the chosen, believing without visible confirmation, obeying without emotional validation, moving without applause. Your test was not random, it was prophetic. It was designed to prepare you for December 22. Every battle refined your hearing. Every disappointment built endurance. Heaven was preparing a vessel that could carry glory without breaking under its weight. You are that vessel now. This is why the storms never killed you. They were never meant to. They were meant to remove the parts of you that could not carry the promise. Pain stripped away pride. Delay dismantled doubt. Rejection redirected your trust. What is left now is purity, faith refined, and obedience unshakable. And so, you must see the testing season not as punishment, but as prophecy fulfilled in process. Each hardship was heaven's vote of confidence in you. God trusted you with trials because he saw in you the strength to finish. You are proof that endurance can be divine worship. Let this truth settle in your spirit. The pain you endured was not wasted. It was tuition for revelation. Heaven does not waste fire. It uses it to forge those who will carry light into dark places. When you stood firm, even broken, the unseen world took notice. Angels recorded your persistence. Heaven witnessed your faithfulness. Now, as the countdown to your appointed day continues, remember the strength you have now came from seasons you prayed to escape. Those moments built the spiritual muscles necessary to carry your next assignment. You are not the same person who began this journey. The testing season created someone heaven can trust completely. Type I, stand firm in the comments if your spirit knows this word is for you. This declaration is not about emotion, it's about agreement. When you write those words, you align your faith with the truth that no test was wasted. It becomes a seal, a statement to heaven that you have learned what the fire was sent to teach. The season of testing is ending. The season of revealing is near. December 22 will not come to find you broken, it will find you prepared. You have proven faithful under pressure, and now heaven prepares to pour what was once withheld. Obedience is your inheritance, and endurance has become your crown. There were moments when heaven felt distant, when prayers seemed to echo into an empty sky. You remember those nights, the silence that pressed against your chest, the stillness that made you question if heaven still heard your voice. Yet even in that silence, something deeper was being written into your soul. God was not ignoring you. He was cultivating within you the ability to hear without noise. When heaven falls silent, it is never absence, it is assessment. Silence is where the heart's true posture is revealed. Anyone can worship when the wind of favor is blowing, but only the chosen can remain still when nothing moves. Silence is the language of maturity. It separates those who seek comfort from those who seek communion. The chosen are trained not just to hear God's voice, but to trust His character when His voice is quiet. There were days when you begged for signs, for confirmation, for something tangible. But heaven wanted you to understand that faith without feeling is still faith. The quiet seasons were never meant to punish. They were invitations to listen differently. God wanted to teach you that His presence is not limited to the thunder of miracles. It also lingers in the whisper of stillness. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, "Be still, and know that I am God." Those words were not written for the comfortable, but for those standing in the tension between faith and fear. To be still is not to do nothing. It is to resist the urge to move ahead of divine timing. It is a posture of trust that says, even in the silence, I know you are working. The silence was your training ground for obedience. You were being taught to follow instructions without constant reassurance, to believe that when heaven seems quiet, God is still speaking through circumstances, timing, and inner conviction. You learn to interpret divine silence not as rejection, but as redirection. What you thought was unanswered prayer was actually God protecting you from premature answers. Every not yet was a hidden, I'm preparing something better. You were growing. Even when it felt like nothing was happening, the silence also exposed your dependencies. It stripped away false securities and idols of certainty. It forced you to stop looking for emotional confirmation and start trusting divine conviction. Heaven was shaping your inner ear to hear what noise once drowned out. That's why, when others drifted away, you stayed anchored. You had learned to discern the difference between divine stillness and spiritual abandonment. In the stillness, obedience became your compass. When heaven said nothing, you learned to return to the last instruction. That is the secret of those who walk closely with God when new words are not spoken. They remain faithful to the old ones. You stopped seeking constant new directions and began to perfect consistent obedience. That is maturity, steady faith without constant reassurance. And through this silence, heaven tested your endurance. Would you still worship when no doors opened? Would you still trust when nothing changed? You did. That's why the silence eventually broke. The quiet did not crush you. It clarified you. It taught you to listen to the rhythm of God's timing instead of the noise of your fear. Many grow weary when heaven hides its voice. But you discovered something holy in those quiet hours. You found peace not in understanding, but in surrender. You began to realize that silence is often a divine strategy to amplify trust. What you couldn't hear through sound, you began to perceive through spirit. The stillness reshaped your identity. You moved from being a seeker of signs to a carrier of faith. The silence once terrified you, but now you recognize it as sacred ground. That calm between storms was not emptiness, it was heaven breathing. aligning, preparing you for the coming unveiling. You now understand that obedience in silence speaks louder than worship in noise. Heaven took note of every moment you kept walking without answers. Each step was an act of prophecy, declaring, "I trust you even here." That kind of trust cannot be faked. It is born only in seasons where the voice of God feels distant. When heaven finally breaks its silence, it does so with power. The words that will come next will not be suggestions, they will be commissions. Silence always precedes assignment. The quiet you once feared was God's way of anchoring you for responsibility. Before he releases instruction that shakes nations, he first builds a heart that cannot be shaken by silence. So now, as you prepare for what is coming, hold this truth in your spirit. Heaven's silence was never punishment, it was preparation. You were being taught to rely on the invisible, to find stability in the unseen. What once felt like abandonment has now become your greatest training ground. The silence trained your obedience, and obedience will soon unlock your reward. The weight of the assignment has been heavy on your shoulders, hasn't it? You've felt it in the way your heart beats differently from others, in the way ordinary things no longer satisfy you. You have tried to explain it, to put words to the invisible gravity that keeps pulling you toward purpose. But few could understand. They only saw the surface, while heaven saw the burden, a divine responsibility sealed within your soul. You were never chosen for ease, you were chosen for impact. The anointing you carry comes with a cost. There are nights when the call feels more like a cross, when obedience burns more than blessing comforts. You look around and see others living freely, carelessly, while you are constantly interrupted by conviction. But what they call interruption, heaven calls intimacy. God cannot trust everyone with weight, but he trusts you. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 20, verse 9. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. That is you. The fire in your bones refuses to stay silent. You can't walk away, even when you try. Purpose doesn't let you sleep. It whispers when the world grows quiet. It tugs at your conscience when you try to settle for less. This fire is not punishment, it is proof that heaven invested something eternal inside you. Carrying divine purpose means living between two worlds, the visible and the unseen. One pulls at your humanity, the other demands your surrender. Sometimes it feels unfair. Doesn't it, you ask? Why me? And heaven replies, because I trusted you to carry what others would drop. The pressure is not weakness, it is the weight of glory pressing against the vessel that holds it. You were not chosen to fit in. You were chosen to stand out, to walk a path where obedience outweighs opinion. Every time you choose the harder road, every time you step away from comfort to remain aligned, you are carrying the weight of your assignment with grace. The world may not see it, but heaven applauds in silence. There were seasons when you questioned if the burden was too much. You tried to pray it away, to shrink into a smaller version of yourself. But the calling kept rising within you. That tension, the ache between your desire to rest and your longing to obey, is divine. It's the sign of a vessel that still burns for purpose. Heaven's chosen never find peace in comfort. They find it only in completion. This weight you carry is not a curse. It's a crown formed in secret. Each time you lift it, you build spiritual muscle. Each tear becomes oil for your next season. Heaven wastes nothing. Every ache of obedience becomes seed. You have been entrusted with assignments larger than your strength. But heaven never gives weight without grace. The pressure that bends you is the same pressure that shapes you. The calling that isolates you is the same calling that crowns you. You are being fashioned into a vessel that can carry glory without collapsing. Chosen one, this message finds you at a sacred crossroads. You stand between what was and what will be. The heaviness you feel is not failure, it is pregnancy with purpose. You are carrying something divine that must be delivered in its appointed time. So pause, feel the weight, not as a burden, but as evidence that heaven still trusts you. Let gratitude rise, not for what you've gained, but for what you've survived. Every hardship has built capacity within you. You are stronger than you know, and softer than you think, a rare balance only forged in divine fire. And as this truth settles into your spirit, consider this when something in you stirs, when your heart whispers, "I'm ready." That's heaven's invitation to lean closer, not out of obligation, but out of love. Maybe you feel led to share light with others, to pass forward what has kindled in you. Perhaps you sense that this fire is not meant to burn alone. Then, let it move you gently, freely. When you share what has touched your spirit, it's like releasing sparks into the night, small lights forming constellations for others still walking in darkness. When you quietly light, it's as if you place one glowing ember on the altar, saying, "This fire still burns in me." And when you subscribe, it is not to a channel, but to a covenant, choosing to remain near the flame that reminds you who you are. This is not persuasion. It is participation in something sacred. Let your heart decide what to do with the fire that lives inside you. If it moves you, carry it forward. If it heals you, guard it closely. Either way, heaven sees, and heaven remembers. The weight of the assignment will one day become the wings of your calling. You will rise with strength equal to your surrender. And when you look back, you will know the heaviness was never meant to crush you. It was meant to prepare you for flight. There comes a moment when heaven sends an instruction that looks simple to man, but monumental in the spirit. It does not come with thunder or lightning. It arrives as a whisper, an impression, a knowing deep in the soul that says, "Do it now." Before December 22, heaven is calling for a prophetic act of obedience. It may not make sense yet, but obedience rarely does until after the miracle. You have felt it stirring. Something in you knows that your next step is not about visibility, but about alignment. The smallest action done in faith can trigger a divine chain reaction. What seems small in your hands may echo loudly in eternity. Heaven's system has always moved this way, through hidden obedience that births visible glory. Scripture declares in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 2, "All these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God." That promise still breathes today. Blessings chase the obedient. They do not need to be forced. They follow naturally. When you obey, heaven responds as though recognizing its own reflection in you. It sees alignment and releases reward. Before your appointed day arrives, heaven is testing posture, not perfection. What will you do when the instruction feels inconvenient? When it costs you comfort or pride? The chosen are not measured by their emotions, but by their obedience in uncertainty. You are standing at a divine threshold. The step you take now decides what unfolds later. Maybe you've sensed a nudge to forgive someone, to end a cycle, to sow where your logic resists, to speak truth where silence feels safer. That impression isn't random, it's a divine directive. Heaven always speaks before release. Your obedience is the trigger that breaks delay. You might be asking, but how do I know it's really God? You'll know because it aligns with peace, not pressure. True instruction carries conviction, not confusion. It may stretch your flesh, but it settles your spirit. It asks for surrender, not struggle. Heaven never manipulates, it invites. And right now, heaven is inviting you into an act of faith that will shift your season. Remember Naaman, who was told to wash 7 times in the Jordan River. The instruction sounded foolish to the proud, but simple to the obedient. Miracles often hide inside humble steps. If he had argued, he would have stayed sick. But obedience did what logic could not. It made the impossible normal. The same will happen for you. Your step of faith will seem small, but heaven measures differently. One prayer whispered with conviction, one act done in secret, one moment of surrender, all of it writes new sentences in the story of your destiny. The heavens wait for your yes. Angels hold their breath when you hesitate because they know the power released when you move. You have come too far to hesitate now. Every test, every silence, every burden has been leading to this, a divine moment when obedience becomes your offering. What you do before December 22 will set the rhythm for what heaven releases after. Don't dismiss the whisper, respond to it. Chosen one. This message is confirmation that the time to act is now. You don't need clarity about every detail, just courage for the next step. God often reveals the second step only after you take the first. The unknown is not your enemy. It's the place where faith breathes freely. So here is the prophetic act heaven is waiting for. If your spirit bears witness that this word speaks directly to you, type 333 inches. The comments. That number represents divine confirmation and heavenly agreement. It symbolizes the unity of heaven's will, the Spirit's prompting, and your obedience becoming one. This is not a ritual, it is a declaration, a visible echo of an invisible yes. When you type that number, you're not performing, you're prophesying, you're declaring. I hear, I trust, I obey. You're marking yourself as one who chooses alignment over hesitation. Heaven sees even the smallest sign of agreement as faith in motion, and faith, once moved, moves mountains. So take the step. Obey the whisper. Type 333 not as a comment, but as a covenant, a symbol of readiness, of agreement with heaven's timing. December 22 is drawing near, and your obedience will not return empty. The seed of faith you plant today will grow into the fruit of breakthrough tomorrow. You are not waiting on heaven, heaven is waiting on you. And when you finally move, everything meant for you will move too. Type 333 again if your heart feels the pull even stronger now. It's more than numbers on a screen, it's a silent vow whispered through your fingertips, saying, I am ready for divine timing. I am aligned with heaven's movement. I choose obedience now. When you write 333, imagine heaven reading it as worship, not words. It becomes an echo in eternity, a mark in the unseen that says you did not ignore the whisper. You responded, and your response is already unlocking what has been waiting for you. Something is stirring in the invisible realm. You may not see it with your eyes, but your spirit feels it, the quiet shifting of divine order, the gentle hum of preparation. Heaven is positioning things around you, rearranging what seemed immovable. This is the season where unseen activity surrounds the obedient. You may still feel the weight of waiting, but delay no longer means distance, it means construction. Every prayer you have prayed, every act of obedience you have offered, has set things in motion beyond your perception. The Spirit has been brooding over your situation like the dawn, hovering over a still horizon, preparing to release light. You have been faithful in silence, and now the invisible world begins to respond. Angels who once waited for instruction are now moving with purpose, aligning circumstances to fulfill what heaven decreed. We are reminded through the writings of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. Heaven always hears the obedient heart, even when it seems like nothing changes. The moment you decided to align your will with His, heaven recorded it. Your words carried weight, not because of volume, but because of obedience. The delay you experienced was never a denial. It was the rearranging of spiritual architecture to make room for the promise. There are battles fought beyond your awareness. While you were worshipping, angels were warring. While you were resting, the unseen realm was negotiating on your behalf. You felt tired because your spirit was engaged in invisible warfare, yet through it all, heaven never lost sight of you. Every tear you cried was evidence submitted before the throne as intercession. Sometimes the stirring in the spirit feels like anxiety, but it's actually anticipation. Heaven's movement often registers in the human heart as restlessness before manifestation. You begin to sense that something is about to break, though you can't name it yet. That tension is not to be feared, it's proof that the unseen world is aligning. This stirring isn't random. It is the gathering of divine elements. Like clouds before rain, prophecy is condensation, obedience is evaporation, manifestation is rainfall. Heaven is collecting everything that obedience has lifted up, ready to release it as blessing. Your faith has changed the weather of your destiny. There will come a day sooner than you imagine when the things that felt delayed will suddenly accelerate. Doors will open easily, not because you pushed harder, but because heaven finally released the keys. What once resisted you will now recognize your authority. You have passed the test of timing, and the unseen world is making way for you. The stirring in the spirit realm also affects the natural. People begin to reappear. Opportunities resurface. Forgotten dreams suddenly awaken. What was once impossible begins to feel within reach. This isn't coincidence, it's orchestration. When heaven moves, everything connected to you adjusts its position to meet divine order. Yet even in this movement, you must remain still within. Don't rush the unfolding. Obedience opened the door, but patience will let you walk through it with grace. The timing of heaven is never early, never late. What looks like last-minute intervention is always perfect synchronization. In this phase, discernment becomes vital. Not every open door is divine. Not every invitation is destiny. The enemy will try to imitate movement, offering distractions disguised as opportunities. But your spirit, refined through silence and obedience, will recognize the difference. Peace is your compass if it costs your peace. It's not from him, Chosen one. The atmosphere around you has shifted. The tension you feel is creation groaning with expectation, as if heaven itself holds its breath, waiting for the perfect moment to release what has been stored up for you. Don't lose heart now. The shaking is not to scare you, it's to confirm that heaven is near. This is the season when unseen help becomes tangible. You will find strength you didn't know you had, provision from unexpected places, and favor that seems to follow you without explanation. The stirring in the spirit is heaven's way of saying, it's almost time. Hold your posture of faith. Keep your hands open and your heart steady. The sound you hear in your spirit, the soft hum of change, is heaven tuning the strings of your destiny, readying them for the song of fulfillment. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared for visibility. When the stirring settles, you will stand in awe at how perfectly heaven arranged it all. You'll realize that every delay was divine choreography. Every silence was rehearsal. Every act of obedience was a note in heaven's melody. The unseen has been working toward your unveiling all along. Before divine fulfillment comes, there is always one final battle, the subtle attempt of darkness to draw you away from obedience just before manifestation. The enemy rarely attacks at the beginning. He waits until the threshold, when breakthrough is near and fatigue softens vigilance. This is the final distraction attempt. The moment where temptation disguises itself as relief. You may notice it already. The weariness, the sudden urge to retreat, the quiet voice suggesting, you've done enough. It comes not to comfort, but to compromise. The closer you are to completion, the more the counterfeit appears appealing. The enemy offers shortcuts that promise rest, but cost alignment. Yet what looks like rest outside of God's will is only delayed warfare in disguise. The Spirit spoke through the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 11, "Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes." The schemes of the enemy are rarely loud. They are subtle. They sound like logic, feel like convenience, and appear as opportunity. But discernment sees beyond appearances. This is the hour to guard your spirit carefully, because not every open door is divine, and not every gentle voice is truth. Darkness imitates light, just enough to confuse the tired soul. You have endured too much to fall into distraction now. Every hardship that refined you was heaven's preparation for the next glory. The enemy cannot stop the promise, so he tries to stop you through distraction, offense, doubt, and fatigue. But you are wiser now. You recognize that what tries to steal your focus is not random, it is targeted. It is proof that breakthrough is near. This final stretch of your journey is not about effort, it's about endurance. When the temptation to quit whispers, remember why you started. You didn't endure silence and testing to collapse at the finish line. This is not the moment to question your strength, but to recall your source. The same God who sustained you through wilderness will empower you through warfare. There is a quiet strength that obedience builds. It doesn't boast. It doesn't panic. It simply persists. That's the kind of strength you carry now. The distractions that once overwhelmed you no longer hold power. You've learned to recognize when peace leaves a room, when discernment tightens in your chest, when heaven's rhythm shifts. Those are your alarms, gentle but clear, warning you not to step off the path. You must understand that distraction is not always sinful. Often, it's simply misdirection. The enemy doesn't need to corrupt you if he can merely occupy you. Busyness can become bondage. If the devil cannot destroy destiny, he'll drown it in noise. That's why you must protect your stillness like treasure. The quieter your mind, the louder heaven's instructions become. Look back and see how far you've come through silence, testing, and burden, and notice how distraction always tried to arrive just before reward. It is the enemy's oldest pattern: offer false rest before real release. Eve was offered knowledge right before fulfillment. Jesus was tempted with shortcuts right before the cross. The pattern is ancient but recognizable. The faithful always face counterfeit comfort before divine completion. Chosen one. If you feel more tired now than before, it is because you are nearing your unveiling. The weight has not increased, your awareness of it has. Heaven is stretching your endurance to match your elevation. Every distraction that rises now is confirmation of proximity. You are almost there. This is where discernment becomes your armor. Guard your time, your focus, your peace, the same way gold is polished just before it shines. Your spirit is being refined one final time before recognition. Let nothing steal your clarity in this hour. Not fear, not comfort, not comparison. And when the whispers of distraction come, do not argue, anchor yourself in remembrance. Recall the promises spoken over you, the moments heaven proved faithful, the victories that came from previous obedience. Let gratitude silence temptation. Gratitude turns distraction into worship. This final attempt of darkness will pass quickly. It cannot hold ground against a soul already surrendered. When you stay anchored, every false offer collapses under the weight of divine truth. Heaven will soon prove that waiting in alignment is stronger than rushing in ambition. So, remain steady. The winds will howl louder just before dawn, but the light always wins. The distractions you face now will soon become testimonies of focus kept and faith preserved. The one who endures without losing sight of instruction becomes unstoppable. The threshold of reward is near. Stand firm, steady your heart, and refuse to trade your destiny for distraction. The very resistance you feel is proof that heaven is almost ready to reveal what it's been building all along. Hold fast, the final distraction will fail, and the true promise will prevail. And when the battle quiets, you will see clearly why the resistance came. Every temptation, every whisper of doubt, every restless night, all of it was proof of how valuable your obedience truly was. The storm was never meant to break you. It was sent to reveal your strength. There comes a revelation that obedience is not about comfort, but covenant. It's the holy exchange between divine promise and human trust. Every time you say yes when it hurts, every time you surrender when understanding fails, you renew that covenant. It's not a contract written in ink, but a vow written in spirit. Covenant is not about perfection, it's about faithfulness under pressure. When you obey, you declare loyalty to a kingdom unseen. You stand under an invisible banner that says, "I belong to heaven's will, not my own." That is covenant. The world celebrates achievement, but heaven celebrates agreement. Every act of obedience becomes a signature on that eternal document between Creator and creation. The Apostle reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 6, verse 16, "I will live with them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people." That is the heartbeat of covenant God dwelling among those who keep his ways. The obedient do not walk alone, they walk accompanied. You may feel unseen, but covenant keeps you surrounded. Heaven is obligated to those who honor obedience. Covenant over convenience, that's the cry of those who truly understand destiny. Convenience seeks the easy path. Covenant holds the eternal promise. Convenience is temporary satisfaction. Covenant is lasting transformation. And every chosen one will face the test to choose the temporary comfort of compromise or the timeless fulfillment of obedience. You've already felt this tension. You've had to walk away from what looked good to stay aligned with what was right. You've turned down offers, silenced pride, and chosen stillness when action would have brought attention. Each of those decisions carved the shape of covenant in your soul. Heaven took note of every quiet no that protected your bigger yes. Your obedience has not gone unnoticed. You've been learning that covenant means choosing principle over pleasure, truth over trend, faith over logic. It is not glamorous, but it is glorious. It's the path where few walk, but those who do carry the light that guides generations. When you live by covenant, you stop chasing blessings and start walking with the blesser. You stop praying for open doors and start becoming one. You realize that obedience doesn't earn favor, it manifests it. Heaven's reward system is relational, not transactional. God doesn't pay wages for obedience. He shares inheritance with the obedient. This is why some seasons felt lonely. Covenant separates. It pulls you from the crowd so heaven can speak privately. You weren't being isolated, you were being initiated. Covenant always begins in hidden places before it is revealed in public. There is a peace that only covenant brings, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on closeness. You know now that obedience may cost comfort, but it always preserves peace. You've discovered that when you obey, you don't lose, you trade temporary ease for eternal security. Heaven has been building a covenantal legacy through you. Your obedience will ripple through generations. The choices you make now, how you love, forgive, give, and endure will echo long after you. Covenant means your yes doesn't just bless you, it blesses those who will come from you. So as heaven observes your posture, know this covenant is not heavy when carried with love. The same hands that assigned it also sustain it. Every burden of obedience rests in hands strong enough to hold galaxies and gentle enough to hold you. If this truth stirs something within, type "I choose covenant" in the comments. Not as a slogan, but as a solemn declaration that your obedience will remain your language of love. It means you're done with convenience, done with half surrender, done with delay. You are choosing the eternal over the easy. When you type those words, heaven records it not as noise, but as commitment. It becomes an altar of intention, a sign in the unseen that your spirit has chosen covenant over compromise. This isn't a command, it's an invitation to confirm what your heart already knows to be true. You were not born to follow trends, you were born to fulfill truth. And every obedient step you take adds another line to your covenant story, one that will outlive you, shining as testimony that faith still walks the earth. Type "I choose covenant" once more, not as repetition, but as reaffirmation. Every time you speak it, it strengthens the foundation you've built with heaven. It's more than text, it's testimony. It tells the unseen world, I have counted the cost, and still, I choose obedience. When you write it, Imagine each letter glowing before the throne, your declaration becoming light, joining the chorus of those who also said yes when it was hardest. Heaven receives it as worship, not noise. The angels mark it as a seal of loyalty, a symbol of unbroken faith. This small act carries weight far beyond the screen. It is the echo of your spirit's surrender, the sound of covenant made visible. What begins as words becomes witness, and heaven always responds to witness. Heaven moves in patterns, not chaos. And as December 22 draws near, everything begins to align: time, opportunity, divine design. The unseen clock of destiny is ticking in perfect rhythm with your obedience. You may not feel the magnitude of this moment, but the heavens do. The alignment you are stepping into is not coincidence. It is the sound of promises unlocking at their appointed time. There is a shift in the atmosphere, subtle but certain. You can feel it when you wake. That quiet awareness that something is about to unfold. This is the season when heaven adjusts everything to fit your obedience. Your patience has invited precision. Your surrender has summoned synchronization. You are stepping into a space where heaven's plan and your path finally meet. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Amos. Chapter 9, verse 13. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. This is what divine alignment looks like: acceleration. The ordinary pace of life is replaced by the rhythm of heaven, where sowing and reaping blur together in supernatural timing. You have waited long enough. The delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Heaven doesn't rush destiny, it refines it. The doors that once resisted you were not locked, they were being timed. You were not forgotten, you were being aligned. Every not yet was heaven's way of saying, I'm arranging the details. This alignment is delicate. One obedient step at the right time releases what 10 years of striving could not. That is why this season feels sacred. It's because heaven's rhythm is now echoing through your life. Every answered prayer, every divine connection, every breakthrough waiting to manifest is synchronized to your timing of obedience. But alignment requires awareness. Heaven moves precisely, and the chosen must move with sensitivity. When you sense the stillness, it means heaven is adjusting. When you feel the pull to act, it means heaven is ready to move through you. This dance between divine instruction and human response is how destiny unfolds. You are not just living, you are partnering with heaven's heartbeat. In moments like this, gratitude becomes a form of alignment. Gratitude tells heaven, I recognize your timing, I trust your rhythm. When you express it, the atmosphere shifts even more quickly, as if heaven leans closer to listen. The most powerful worship is not always sung, it is lived through patient obedience. You might notice small signs, conversations aligning unexpectedly, opportunities returning in new form, peace replacing anxiety. These are not random, they are confirmations that heaven's machinery is in motion. Everything you thought you lost is being restructured under divine timing. Take a breath and let this truth settle. Heaven is not late. It has been waiting for this precise intersection, your readiness meeting God's plan. You've grown enough to receive what would have crushed you before. That is the beauty of alignment. It waits until you can carry what you once only craved. And now, at this point in your journey, Let gratitude and awareness move through you naturally. If your heart feels stirred, if your spirit feels illuminated, allow that response to rise. You are not being asked, you are being invited into participation with the flow of divine timing. When you share a message that awakens your spirit, it's as though you're lighting another candle in a room once dark, helping someone else see their path. When you quietly it's like turning your face toward the light and saying, "Yes, I feel the warmth of this truth." And when you subscribe, you are not joining a channel, you are choosing to keep your heart tuned to this ongoing melody of heaven, remaining near the place where divine rhythm speaks. Each act is a whisper, not a performance, a moment of quiet agreement between your heart and the heavens. It's you saying, "I want to stay close to what is holy, to what is awakening life within me." No one can command such things from you, they can only invite you. Because love never forces, it flows. You are free to stay or to move, to listen or to linger. But if you sense something sacred here, something that feels like home to your spirit, then honor that nudge. Let gratitude guide your next step. Heaven is aligning, not just events, but hearts, yours included. Every echo of obedience, every act of quiet faith, every whispered yes has brought you to this perfect juncture. So lift your gaze, breathe deeply, and let the rhythm of divine timing carry you forward. You are walking in alignment, and all of heaven is walking with you. And when that rhythm finally reaches its crescendo, you'll understand that every waiting season, every silent night, and every obedient step was a note in heaven's grand symphony. The timing was never delayed. It was divine music composed around your faithfulness. There comes a moment when what has been held in heaven begins to move toward you with undeniable force. The release of the reward is not a random burst of blessing, it is the fruit of alignment. The evidence that obedience has completed its cycle. For so long, it felt as though you were sowing into silence, giving without return, believing without visible proof. But heaven never forgets. Every act of obedience was a seed, and now the season of reaping has begun. The Word of God declares in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That proper time is sacred. It belongs only to those who refuse to stop sowing when others did. You are stepping into that time now. The weariness you carried, the tears you sowed, the prayers you thought were unnoticed, all of it was counted. Heaven is precise. It never forgets the labor of faith. What felt like loss was stored as credit. And the release you are about to experience is the divine repayment of every unseen offering. When heaven releases reward, it rarely comes as expected. It doesn't always arrive wrapped in applause or recognition. Sometimes it comes quietly, through peace that cannot be shaken, through favor that flows naturally, through opportunities that once seemed out of reach, but now fall into place effortlessly. The true sign of reward is rest. Rest in knowing you no longer have to strive for what obedience has already secured. This release carries weight beyond material blessing. It is the restoration of what obedience preserved: the strength of your faith, the clarity of your purpose, the purity of your motive. Heaven rewards not just with things, but with transformation. You are no longer striving to prove. You are standing in the proof of transformation itself. What is unfolding now will confirm that nothing was wasted. the nights you stayed faithful in silence, the seasons you obeyed without understanding all of it, was investment. Heaven's economy does not pay by the hour, it pays by endurance. And your endurance has reached its maturity. The release is not coming because of one act, it's coming because of the pattern of your obedience over time. You will start to notice shifts around you, relationships aligning, opportunities resurfacing, resources appearing without strain. These are not coincidences, they are responses. Heaven is mirroring back to you what you released in faith. Every yes you whispered into the dark has returned with multiplied light. Every sacrifice you made in private is now calling forth visible confirmation. But there is something deeper happening beneath the surface. The release of the reward is not only external, it's internal. You are being given new eyes to see, new peace to rest, new confidence to stand. Heaven rewards the obedient by expanding their capacity to carry divine presence. The true harvest is spiritual maturity, the strength to hold greater glory without pride and deeper revelation without fear. This is why your journey could not be shortened. Quick success would have ruined you. Slow obedience has refined you. Heaven delayed the reward until you could handle it without worshipping it. Now, when the release arrives, you won't cling to it, you'll steward it. You've learned that the reward was never the goal, obedience was. The blessing simply follows. The release also carries restoration. Things that slipped through your fingers in past seasons will return differently, stronger, purer, aligned with purpose. People who misunderstood you may see you again with new eyes. Not because you changed for them, but because obedience changed your atmosphere. Heaven vindicates the faithful not with words, but with fruit. And yet, even in this season of release, humility remains your covering. You will feel joy, but also reverence, because you'll understand that this is not your doing, it's divine orchestration. Every open door, every unexpected favor, every healing of heart and opportunity that unfolds is a reminder that obedience always ends in restoration. The release of the reward is not a finish line, it's a beginning. Heaven doesn't just give, you are being entrusted. The more you receive, the more you are called to reflect what heaven has given. The blessings you now walk in are not proof of your worth, but of God's faithfulness. You've reached the point where striving ceases, and peace takes the throne. Everything that comes now flows with ease, because it's no longer wrestled, for it's received. The heavens are releasing what has been held in storage, and you are ready to carry it. The reward is not just for your comfort, but for your calling. It will sustain what's coming next. So breathe. Chosen one, the waiting season is over. What once felt withheld is now released in fullness. This is not luck, this is divine justice. Heaven has remembered every obedient seed, and the harvest has finally arrived. After the release comes confirmation. Heaven always validates obedience with signs, gentle whispers that prove the unseen has become real. These confirmations are not coincidences, they are divine fingerprints reminding you that heaven watches closely over those who obey. In the days following your breakthrough, you will notice small yet powerful details aligning in unexpected ways. These are not random, they are signatures of fulfillment. You may begin to see familiar numbers, repeated words, or hear a song that mirrors your prayer. Creation itself seems to echo what heaven is doing. The spiritual and the natural begin to harmonize, as if the world recognizes that something has shifted within you. Even your surroundings start to feel different. because once the Spirit transforms, the atmosphere follows. According to what is written in the book of Job, chapter 33, verse 14, "For God does speak now one way, now another, though no one perceives it." The confirmations you're about to see are heaven's language of assurance. God has always been speaking, but now your ears are sharper, your heart quieter, your discernment stronger. You will perceive his communication not as coincidence, but as covenant response. These signs come to strengthen your confidence in what has been promised. Pay attention to peace. It is the first sign. When heaven approves something, it stamps it with tranquility. Opportunities may come, but peace will decide which one is divine. You'll notice that the right things bring calm, while distractions bring tension. That's confirmation number one. Peace follows purpose. The second sign is recognition. People will begin to see you differently. It's not about fame, but reflection. They will sense the shift even if they cannot explain it. The light you carry is no longer hidden. When obedience reaches its maturity, it changes how others perceive you. Your presence will begin to carry weight, an atmosphere that commands attention without demanding it. The third sign is restoration. Things you let go of in obedience will reappear, renewed and realigned. It may be a dream, an opportunity, or a relationship. Heaven returns what belongs to you once it's purified. The delay was never denial, it was detox. Now, what returns carries heaven's fingerprint, not the world's residue. These confirmations are not just blessings, they are instructions to keep walking. They tell you, stay in rhythm, don't lose focus. Heaven is still speaking. The signs aren't the destination, they are the breadcrumbs that lead you deeper into divine intimacy. This is where many stop watching, but the wise remain attentive. When heaven confirms, it's not just to celebrate, it's to communicate. Each sign carries a message. A repeated number may whisper, stay aligned. A word may say, be still. A conversation may answer a question you never voiced aloud. The more you listen, the more you'll notice that heaven never stopped speaking, it only waited for your stillness to hear. Chosen one, as you move forward, don't dismiss the gentle nudges. The confirmations you see in this season are sacred. They are heaven's way of saying, you are seen, you are guided, you are exactly where you need to be. The atmosphere around you is becoming prophetic, translating the unseen into tangible reminders. And if this word resonates deeply, if you can already feel that quiet assurance stirring in your spirit, type 7,777 inches the comments. That number represents divine completion wrapped in covenant grace, the acknowledgement that what began in obedience has now reached fulfillment under heaven's order. When you write 7,777, you are not typing digits, you are declaring agreement. You're saying, the signs are speaking, and I am listening. It becomes a statement of awareness, a symbolic act that tells heaven, I perceive the confirmation, I recognize the movement, I respond with faith. Each appearance of alignment, each moment of recognition, each surge of peace is heaven reminding you that the story continues. The confirmations are not the end, they are the echo of your yes reverberating through creation. And as you acknowledge them, heaven begins to prepare the next chapter, where obedience will lead you not only to promise, but to permanence. Type 7,777 once more if your heart feels that quiet confirmation within. Each time you declare it, you are echoing heaven's language of agreement. These numbers are not superstition, they're symbols of awareness. An open acknowledgement that you recognize the fingerprints of God in your story. When you write 7,777, imagine heaven responding with a gentle nod, as if saying, I see you seeing me. It's not about seeking signs, it's about celebrating that you now discern them. Every repetition becomes a ripple of faith across the unseen, a quiet yet powerful signal that you are aligned, listening, and responsive to the divine rhythm unfolding around you. This act is both simple and sacred. It's your spirit whispering gratitude through your fingertips, a small visible sign of an invisible covenant. As your faith agrees with heaven's confirmation, every 7,777 becomes light written across the spiritual sky, marking you as one who recognizes and responds to the movement of God. When heaven begins to move, even the air feels different. The very spaces you enter begin to shift. What once felt heavy now feels light. And where confusion once lived, clarity begins to reign. This is what it means for atmospheres to change. Heaven is not only releasing blessings, it is rewriting the environment around you. Every obedient step you have taken has altered the spiritual weather in your favor. It's not just about what happens to you, but what happens around you. The presence you now carry begins to influence rooms before you speak. Peace follows you like fragrance. Where tension lingers, it begins to dissolve. Where chaos once ruled, order begins to settle. You may not realize it, but you have become a living carrier of divine equilibrium. Heaven's atmosphere moves with you because obedience anchors it in your life. Scripture reminds us through the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. That is who you are now. You are not searching for light. You are the light. You no longer need to fight for presence. You carry presence. Every moment of surrender has expanded your spiritual influence. You've become a walking sanctuary, and wherever your feet touch, heaven claims territory. You might have noticed that certain people respond differently to you lately. Some draw closer without knowing why, others distance themselves. This is not personal, it is spiritual. Light attracts what resonates and exposes what resists. When your atmosphere shifts, it reveals what is truly around you. Do not mourn those who leave. They were not rejecting you, they were recoiling from transformation. The shifting of atmospheres also exposes hidden assignments. Places that once drained you will now empower you. Conversations that used to discourage you will suddenly become platforms for your purpose. What used to overwhelm you will now bow under your presence. This is not arrogance, it's authority born of obedience. You've learned that power doesn't shout, it simply stands, steady and sure. You carry something sacred now. It's not the same you who began this journey months ago. You've walked through silence, fire, waiting, and warfare, and all of it has changed your spiritual chemistry. You are not just surviving, you are radiating. Heaven's frequency flows through your words, your steps, your very being. The way you think has matured. The way you pray has deepened. And the way you perceive is now prophetic. This is the fulfillment of transformation when heaven no longer just visits, but dwells. You've become a vessel of continuous communion. That is why some days feel weightless. Peace now fills spaces where fear used to live. You are not fighting for presence anymore, you are abiding in it. Yet, with new atmosphere comes new responsibility. The places you enter will respond to what you carry, for better or worse. You cannot speak carelessly or move impulsively anymore. Your words have weight. The spiritual realm pays attention to you now. Every whisper becomes declaration. Every step, a statement. You have become a representation of divine order in human form. And this new atmosphere will draw both opportunities and opposition. Don't be alarmed when old battles attempt to revisit you. They are testing whether you still carry the authority to overcome. But you do. What once terrified you now trembles before you. The same light that exposes darkness also establishes boundaries. Nothing can touch what heaven has marked. Chosen one. Your obedience has not only transformed your path, it has redefined your presence. You walk now as one who commands peace, not requests it. You carry the sound of stability in a world that craves noise. You are not the same. Your spirit's atmosphere has changed. And everything around you will have to adjust to that truth. So walk carefully, but confidently. Carry your peace like a mantle, your faith like fragrance, and your obedience like fire. Every environment you enter from this point forward will respond to your alignment. This is what heaven means when it says, "Your light has come." The shifting of atmospheres is heaven's applause for your endurance. You have become proof that obedience not only changes destiny, it changes dimensions. The air around you now testifies heaven is here. And when you notice peace where there used to be chaos, pause for a moment and breathe it in. That stillness isn't empty, it's heaven exhaling through you. Every gentle silence, every calm moment is evidence that your obedience has rewritten the atmosphere itself. You will begin to sense it in subtle ways, the way tension dissolves when you speak truth, or how hope seems to follow you into weary places. You've become a carrier of calm, a walking answer to prayers others haven't yet spoken aloud. The air around you now responds to your surrender. So wherever you go, go gently. Carry heaven like fragrance and light, not force. The same presence that steadies you will soon steady those near you. This is transformation made visible. Restoration always comes quietly at first. It doesn't rush in with noise or spectacle. It begins softly, like dawn spreading across the horizon after a long night. You start to notice pieces returning, not as they were, but refined, reformed, and ready for this new season. Heaven restores differently. It never gives back what you lost, it gives back better. Everything that slipped away during the breaking season is now being returned in divine order. At first, it may not even look like restoration. It might come through new opportunities, healed emotions, unexpected reconciliations, or the simple ability to feel joy again. Heaven restores not just what was taken, but the parts of you that forgot how to receive. You are being reintroduced to yourself, the version heaven always intended you to become. We are reminded through the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Those years were not wasted. Every tear, every disappointment, every delay has been counted. Restoration is not just recovery, it is recompense. Heaven returns what was lost with interest. The pain you endured became currency for the abundance now approaching. This is the divine exchange: ashes for beauty, mourning for joy, heaviness for praise. The scales are being balanced by the hand of justice itself. You might see it first in your spirit, a renewal of strength where exhaustion once lived. Then it begins to touch the outer world. Conversations that ended in bitterness reopen in peace. People who left in misunderstanding return with clarity. Dreams that felt buried begin to stir again. And through it all, there is a gentle realization: heaven was never punishing you. It was preparing you to receive restoration without resentment. Because true restoration requires maturity. If God returned everything too soon, you might have worshipped the gift and forgotten the giver. Now, after the refining, you can handle blessing without losing humility. You've learned that restoration is not entitlement, it's entrustment. Heaven restores those who can carry blessing responsibly. You've become that vessel. There's a beauty in how heaven restores subtly. It doesn't announce itself. It simply begins to flow. You'll find yourself smiling again for no reason. Opportunities you once chased will begin to find you. The places that once rejected you will start to recognize you. Where there was resistance, there is now welcome. This isn't luck, it's recompense unfolding in real time. You'll also find restoration in relationships, not always with the same people, but with the same purpose. Those meant to walk with you in this new season will appear, carrying the same peace you've been cultivating. Divine connections are a form of restoration. 2. They fill the void left by those who couldn't continue with you. Heaven replaces absence with alignment. And restoration doesn't stop at relationships or possessions, it touches purpose. Where confusion once clouded direction, clarity will now guide your steps. You'll wake up knowing where to invest your energy, what to say yes to, and what to walk away from without guilt. Purpose, once blurred by pain, is now sharpened by perspective. This is the stage where recognition begins, not from people, but from heaven itself. Favor begins to flow, not as a reward for striving, but as a reflection of alignment. The work of restoration is completed when you realize that the best part of getting back what was lost is discovering who you became in the process. You are no longer chasing validation, you are walking in completion. And as this restoration unfolds, you'll see how intricately heaven has orchestrated every detail. What was broken was not wasted, it became the material for your rebuilding. Every loss was measured, every delay purposeful, every silence strategic. Heaven restores with precision, ensuring that nothing returns unless it can now serve destiny. Chosen one, you are standing in the quiet glow of divine repayment. Everything that once felt stripped away is being returned, multiplied, sanctified, and fortified. The season of lack is giving way to overflow. But this overflow will not drown you, it will sustain you. So, walk gently into this restoration. You don't have to chase it, it's already chasing you. Breathe deeply, and let the light of this new dawn settle over you. What you lost has not only returned, it has resurrected. The story that once seemed broken has been rewritten in glory. This is not compensation, it's culmination. Heaven restores, and it never restores halfway. You'll know restoration has fully arrived when peace feels familiar again. It won't come as a rush of emotion, but as a steady calm that tells your soul, it's done. Heaven's work finishes quietly, like the closing of a sacred chapter written just for you. Soon, gratitude will replace grief. You'll look at what once hurt and see only growth, not loss. That's how restoration transforms, by rewriting pain into purpose and scars into stories that shine. So rest now. Let restoration do what it was sent to do. You've fought enough. Now heaven finishes what obedience began. When heaven restores, it never stops at one life. It multiplies the miracle. What you have received was never meant to stay contained within you. The reward of obedience is not only restoration, but multiplication. You are now the vessel through which others will find courage to obey. The fire that once refined you is now the light that will guide them. The prophet Isaiah wrote, chapter 61, verse 3, "They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor." That is what you've become, a living testimony. A rooted tree whose branches stretch beyond personal blessing. You were not just chosen to be healed. You were chosen to heal. Your story carries seeds. And every word that flows from you now carries power to awaken what has slept in others. This is where heaven begins to multiply your obedience. The same endurance that sustained you through testing will now strengthen those still in it. The same silence that once shaped you will now become a sound that comforts others. When you share what you've learned, it's not just storytelling, it's spiritual sowing. Your words become bread to the hungry, light to the lost, and water to the weary. The beauty of multiplication is that it happens naturally when hearts overflow. You don't have to force it. You simply live truthfully. When people encounter your peace, they'll feel possibility. When they hear your testimony, they'll sense timing. You've become a mirror of hope, showing others that obedience does not end in emptiness, it ends in abundance. Your calling now is not to convince, but to carry. Carry peace into places of pain. Carry light into conversations filled with confusion. Carry truth without shouting, and love without condition. You are the continuation of a divine story that began long before you and will outlive you. Sometimes the most powerful form of ministry is presence. Just by existing in alignment, you shift atmospheres. Just by standing in rooms, you remind the world that grace still works, that faith still holds, that obedience still wins. You don't have to announce it. Your peace will preach louder than your words ever could. You may feel heaven nudging you to pass it on, to tell your story, to extend what healed you, not as a command, but as an invitation. When you share the message, it's as if you scatter holy seeds into the winds of time, trusting that somewhere, someone who's on the edge will hear and remember that they, too, are chosen. When you share, it's like releasing light from your hands, soft but powerful, spreading warmth into places you may never see. When you quietly it's your silent amen, a nod to heaven saying, "I felt that fire again." And when you subscribe, it's not about connection to a page, it's about remaining connected to the pulse of what stirred your soul, choosing to stay near the sound of purpose. Even your comment is not mere interaction, it's reflection. It's the moment where your spirit answers back, saying, "This truth lives in me too." Whether you write a single word or a simple heart, it becomes a prayer on the wind, joining countless others in a chorus of awakened voices. You are not obligated to respond, you are invited to participate. Heaven's movement is never about pressure, it's about partnership. When you engage, it's like joining hands across unseen distances, creating a chain of light that stretches through generations. So, if this message stirs your heart, let your response be your art. Let your gratitude be your gesture, whether through sharing, through silence, or through staying. Do it because it feels holy, because it feels true. The act itself becomes worship, a voluntary yes whispered back to heaven. The call is not to perform, but to multiply. To let what healed you heal another. To let what woke you wake the world. The ripples from your obedience will travel farther than you know, touching lives you'll never meet, but whose stories will still be changed by your light. Heaven never wastes obedience, it expands it. The testimony that began in your tears will end in someone else's awakening. You are not just restored, you are now the messenger of restoration. So, walk forward with open hands, release light, speak life. Let gratitude be your compass, and wherever this message finds its next heart, may it burn as gently and as fiercely as it did in yours. And if ever you wonder whether your small actions matter, remember, this light never questions its reach. It simply shines, and the darkness adjusts. Every reflection of goodness you share multiplies somewhere unseen, echoing softly through eternity. Your willingness to pass the flame forward becomes an act of quiet creation. The same spirit that found you now flows through you, carrying restoration to others who are waiting for a sign of hope. You've become that sign. So let your obedience keep glowing in ordinary moments. Heaven writes miracles in the margins of everyday lives. When heaven begins to reward obedience, the aftermath is peace, not the fragile kind that depends on silence, but the steady kind that flows from understanding. You are now walking in the afterglow of divine fulfillment, where everything inside and around you feels rearranged in sacred order. The striving has ceased. The waiting has ended. The once heavy burden now feels like breath. This peace is not passive, it is powerful. It doesn't mean everything is perfect, it means everything is purposeful. You've learned to see beyond surface chaos, recognizing the hidden harmony in divine timing. You no longer measure life by what happens to you, but by what heaven is producing through you. That shift in vision is the truest reward of obedience. We are reminded through the writings of Paul in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 7, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." That peace is your new protector. It stands at the doorway of your heart, guarding it from the voices that once unsettled you. Fear no longer governs your decisions, peace does. You are no longer tossed by emotion, because you have anchored yourself in conviction. Heaven's reward is not always more, it's enough. You'll begin to notice that even small moments carry significance now. The sunrise feels prophetic. The laughter of loved ones sounds like worship, and silence feels sacred instead of empty. You've entered a season where heaven no longer needs to prove itself to you, it simply walks with you. This is what happens when obedience becomes delight. You no longer obey to receive, you obey because you've fallen in love with His ways. Peace transforms perspective. You can look back at the storms and thank them. The very things that once terrified you have become teachers. Every delay, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was actually shaping your soul into a vessel strong enough to hold divine contentment. You've discovered that peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of God in every detail. You also notice that your pace has changed. You no longer rush ahead or drag behind. You've learned to move in sync with heaven's rhythm. When it says go, you step. When it says wait, you rest. This calm obedience keeps you aligned. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. You've grown from reacting to responding, from striving to surrendering. This afterglow also brings clarity. You can now see which relationships are meant to continue, which doors to walk through, which battles to release. Obedience sharpened your discernment. Peace now maintains it. Where confusion once blurred your path, stillness now illuminates it. You don't need to force understanding anymore. What's meant for you will reveal itself in time. There's also restoration within your inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself has changed. You no longer criticize the process, you honor it. You recognize that your journey was never about proving worth, but about unveiling grace. The inner war is over. You finally believe that you are enough, not because of achievement, but because obedience has united your will with heaven's. Peace doesn't make life easier, it makes it eternal. You find yourself responding differently to things that once triggered you. You pause, breathe, and remember that everything is held together by divine design. This is spiritual maturity, not the absence of storms, but the presence of calm within them. Heaven's reward is not just provision, it's perspective. The same situations that once caused panic now produce praise. You look at them and see purpose instead of pain. That's how you know transformation is complete. In this afterglow, gratitude becomes your natural language. You don't have to remind yourself to be thankful. Your very existence has become thanksgiving. Peace has rewritten your posture. You've become one who lives from rest, not for rest. Every breath now feels like a hymn of quiet assurance. And this peace, this divine calm that flows through you, is not fleeting. It's permanent because it was purchased through obedience. Heaven's afterglow will follow you into every future assignment, every new beginning. The same presence that carried you through the wilderness now carries you through abundance. Chosen one, this is what it means to live within divine reward, not to escape difficulty, but to remain unshaken by it. You are no longer chasing signs of God. You've become the resting place of His peace. Peace will no longer visit you, it will live with you. You'll wake to it like sunlight and carry it into every room. It won't depend on what's happening, it will simply be. An unbroken presence that reminds you that heaven has settled within you. Even in unexpected moments, you'll feel it, an unspoken, calm whispering. You are held. The storms may return, but they won't reach your center anymore. You've become anchored too deeply to be moved. This is the final stage of reward-abiding peace. Not earned, not borrowed, bestowed, and it will follow you for the rest of your days. There comes a sacred realization at the end of every divine journey, the understanding that it was never about arrival, but about transformation. You look back now and see that every season, every silence, every act of obedience was heaven teaching you how to live in eternal partnership. The moment you said yes was not the beginning of a mission, it was the beginning of communion. The reward was never only what you gained, but who you became. The eternal echoes of obedience reach farther than you know. They don't end when the action ends, they ripple through generations, shaping destinies you'll never meet, healing wounds you'll never see. Obedience is eternal because it aligns with eternity itself. When you obey, you agree with the timeless rhythm of heaven. Your yes becomes part of a chorus sung across ages, a song of surrender that never fades. The ancient writings remind us in the book of Revelation, chapter 14, verse 13, "Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. They will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them." That is the secret. What you do in obedience never dies. Deeds born of surrender outlive the body. They echo forever in the memory of heaven. Every unseen act of faith, every moment you chose light over darkness, becomes a permanent note in creation's symphony. Obedience writes eternity into time. You are beginning to understand this now. All those moments you thought were small were actually monumental in the spirit. Each prayer, whispered in weakness, became architecture in heaven. Every tear sown in faith became water for future harvests. Every choice to stay when leaving seemed easier became a monument of love in the unseen world. The sum of your obedience has become legacy. And legacy is not fame, it is fruit. It's the quiet evidence that heaven has passed through your life and left light behind. Others may never know your name, but they will feel your impact. Every life you touched, every person who drew hope from your endurance, carries a fragment of your obedience within them. You are part of heaven's lineage now, an eternal branch on a divine tree that keeps bearing fruit long after its gardener has gone home. This realization changes how you see everything. You no longer strive for recognition or reward. You live for resonance. You want your actions to echo in eternity, not in applause. You begin to live slower, speak softer, love deeper. You stop asking, "What will I gain?" and start asking, "What will remain?" That is the language of those who understand legacy. Heaven is not counting numbers, it's counting echoes. It records every moment where human will yielded to divine intent. Those echoes build patterns that continue long after we leave. That is what makes obedience holy. It's the one thing that time cannot erase. In the eternal scheme, obedience becomes worship without end. It is the purest form of agreement between creation and Creator. When you obey, you join heaven's flow, and in that alignment, eternity recognizes you. You are not just known, you are remembered. This is why your journey had to be long. Heaven was writing your name into eternal storylines, weaving your obedience into its everlasting design. You weren't being delayed, you were being inscribed. Every time you trusted without evidence, your faith wrote another line in heaven's book of remembrance. Now, as the journey settles into peace, you realize the weight of this truth. Obedience is not an event, it's a legacy. You have become part of heaven's unending narrative. The echoes of your yes will outlive you, guiding others to say their own. That is immortality, the kind that no tomb can silence. No time can diminish. Look at yourself now, not the one who began this journey, but the one who stands transformed by it. You carry the fragrance of eternity in your spirit. The storms no longer intimidate you, for you have seen what they create. The waiting no longer wears you down, for you know what it builds. The reward no longer blinds you, for you've learned that the true treasure was always communion. Heaven smiles when you reach this place, not because you've finished, but because you've understood. Eternity is not far away. It's here, hidden inside every act of obedience, every heartbeat aligned with purpose. The story doesn't end, it continues through those you touch, through prayers you've prayed, through the legacy your surrender has left behind. And so, the eternal echoes of your obedience resound through creation. whispering a truth heaven loves to repeat: the chosen never walk in vain. Even after you're gone, the sound of your obedience will remain a melody. Heaven will keep replaying in the hearts of those who rise after you. Your faith became their foundation, your endurance their example, your light their direction. Nothing was wasted. Heaven will keep echoing your yes through generations, shaping futures you'll never see. The story you lived will keep breathing through others' victories. That is eternal impact, not a monument of stone, but a resonance of spirit that never fades, only multiplies. So now, as this divine story reaches its final breath, pause and feel what has settled inside you. The words you've heard were never just sentences. They were seeds, each one planted to awaken remembrance of who you've always been. You are not the same soul who began this journey. Something in you has shifted, deepened, brightened. You've walked through fire and found not ruin but revelation. The message has always been simple: obedience opens heaven. But heaven's reward is not only favor, it's transformation. You've seen it unfold inside you, quietly, steadily, until your heart now beats in rhythm with divine purpose. The air feels different because you are different. This isn't an ending, it's a continuation written in light. And as you stand here, between completion and new beginning, let your gratitude speak in whatever way feels natural. If this message stirred something holy in you, if you felt heaven brush against your spirit even once, then let that awareness overflow. When you share, it is not promotion, it's participation. It's you lighting another lamp for a soul still searching in the dark. When you like, it's your silent agreement with heaven's truth, your way of whispering, "I felt that presence too." When you subscribe, it's not to a name or a page, it's to a movement of light, to a frequency that keeps your heart aligned with the flow of purpose. And if your spirit longs to leave a trace, let your comment be more than words. Let it be a reflection, a line of gratitude, a single phrase of truth, or even an emoji that carries your essence. It's your way of placing one final stone on the altar of remembrance, saying quietly, "I was here. I received. I am changed." Every act of engagement becomes a prophetic gesture, an echo that says, "I choose to stay awake." There is no pressure, only invitation. You are free to let this moment pass, or you can let it ripple through you, touching others as it touched you. Heaven always honors willing hearts, never forced ones. So carry this fire forward. Let your words heal, your peace teach, your presence remind the world that obedience is still beautiful. This story may end here, but your own is only beginning, and heaven is already writing the next line through you.